We're here today on Country Pocket with Amy Hopwood. The new album is Gone to Flowers, and you just heard the very fun, somewhat grim, but mostly happy. I'd rather be older than dead. Uh, Amy, you don't look like you've gotten too far along in your age. So what has made you do this album about, aging and passing?
Well, I mean, it's very nice for you to say, but I am a bit away along the road. But obviously, I'm getting older, and everyone I know is getting older, and you can't really get away from that. At a certain age, and I have elderly parents, and I think it's for me, it's just I'm always sort of one that's drawn to things that people are trying to avoid. So I think a lot of people will try and avoid thinking about death, talking about death, and so on. And for me, it just feels a lot healthier to kind of look it and stare it in the face and think about it, and try and therefore handle your approach to it. So I guess that's what was going on in my life as I was starting to write that album. It's the fourth album, so I've done some songwriting and so on previously, but this time it just seemed to be the thing that was coming up, aging and death. So yeah.
You very much do look it in the face here. Um,
Mm.
but at the same time, I don't think it's a cold stare. You come to some kind of understanding with the concept.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to do, really. So I didn't know. I didn't. Well, when I started the album, I did have the theme in mind, but I didn't know what I would come up with. And I was reading about death and mortality, and absorbing whatever I was seeing around me, I suppose, in relation to that. But I wanted to make sure that it was not like just a miserable album, of like funeral songs, but that it was really thinking about the different aspects of it, adding some humour to the situation, and overall, the way I feel is that we're all mortal. We will all die. Um, so what it comes down to is how can you best live now? How can you best cope with that? How can you have the best life and feel comfortable in a way with the inevitable? So that's what it was all about. And one way or another, I hope I've managed to sort of do something that helps a little with that. Certainly, some of the feedback has been that people are finding it quite comforting and uh, you know fun as well. Fun stuff about death.
There are some moments in there that are sort of separate from death that I want to focus on. You
Mm-hmm.
sing about loving your body as it gets older. You don't have to
Mm,
be you don't have to be super old. I'm 33. You don't have to be super old to look in the mirror and say, you know, things are changing a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
How do you learn to love your body when it's maybe not as perfect as it used to be?
It's hard, isn't it? I can't say I've got the answer, but that's what that song came from for sure. Is that feeling of like because I mean it will only get worse. This is the awful thing, and if you think about it, often you kind of look back and you think, oh, 10 years ago, I thought I was really fat and I was really ugly and I hated the way I looked. And then when you look at the photos from 10 years ago, you think, oh, I was beautiful then. I wish I was like that now. So I think it's sort of looking at that attitude really and remembering that, what you have now is good relatively. And also the key thing, as the song says, it's better than the alternative. Getting older is better than being dead. So it's a kind of a blunt way of looking at it, but it really is something that it's one of the songs I sing live a lot, and people really enjoy that one. They really join in and they get into it because we're all facing the same thing. We're all aging. We're all at whatever stage we're at, really. I mean, beyond the age of 10, we're all kind of deteriorating one way or another, aren't we? So, yeah.
Yeah, we definitely all are. Where did you find your choir of older people?
It was actually at the Wessex Folk Festival. So that's in Weymouth in the UK. And I used to live in Weymouth and I used to be involved in that folk festival. So often they'll have me back to run a session for them. So like a folk session. So this is kind of, where you go around, for those who don't know, you kind of go around in a circle and everyone sings a song or plays a song and then you keep going around the circle until you're all drunk or you're all tired or whatever it is. Um, so I was running a session there and I asked them if you join in because I knew they would. Like folk singers are brilliant for just joining in on the chorus on anything and harmonising and doing everything like that. So I just asked them if I could record them and I did. Um, and then I built that into the song when I got back and obviously sort of did more mixing and more recordings and layered it all up to kind of have that sound. So yeah, a folk festival basically in Weymouth. There was a mixed audience, but they do tend to be a bit older. I think those audiences.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely I've been to some folk festivals and wondered where other people my age were, but it's it's
You'll get
great
older and
to
then you'll fit in.
yeah, it's great to find people who share your interests, no matter what the
Mm.
age were. You talk about sort of layering that in, getting these sounds, adding it in. There is a lot of sound layering and a lot of natural sound and a lot of sort of rhythms created from more than one performer, whether it's you speaking and you singing, or maybe some birds, some whispering voices. Why did you go with such a sort of layered rhythmic sound like that?
Um, I like it, I suppose. I mean, so because I have sort of complete control because I'm doing all the producing myself. So I'll record the first vocal and the guitar, and if there is guitar, and then I think, well, what else does it need? What should I add? And often that's like layers of my own voice. Sometimes it's other instruments, or in the case of Breadcrumbs, that song, with the whispering voices in the background. Then that I think that one, I knew that that's what I wanted to do before I even started to sort of produce it and mix it, and therefore I'd ask people to record the voices for me, and so send them in from their phones, basically. So it's quite a lot of technical work, I have to do to make all these things work, but I enjoy it, and I enjoy that freedom of being able to do exactly what I want, not having to describe it to somebody else, so that they might not quite understand what I want and they do something slightly different. It's really nice um, to have that freedom. But yeah, I guess it's how my mind works, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I, I sort of like the way sometimes things just fade into a choir with this album. Um, you have a song that connects with me pretty deeply on a personal level. I'm sure it's not the first time you've heard this, but um, I had a grandmother who definitely liked her birds, and uh, I now have elderly relatives who see certain kinds of birds, and well, that must mean my grandmother's looking down on them, so they'll see the
Mm,
cardinal and say, "Hello, Alice."
mm,
And you know, it was really interesting to hear it put to music. Um,
yeah.
where did you get the idea for that song from?
Um, It was a combination of things, I think. I'd heard the phrase, she became a bird, years ago, and I'd written it down. I just scribbled it down because I sort of collect phrases and fragments of lyrics and ideas, and I write them all down on record cards and stick them in a box. And every now and then I look through them and start grouping things together. So there was that phrase. Then there was the in the chorus somewhere. There's something about a million small voices singing all at once, or something like that. And that was another thing that I just sort of. I don't think I'd heard that. It had just come into my mind, and I'd written that one down. So all these things relating to birds were kind of. I grouped them all together, and then it is sadly quite a personal one for me as well. So my mum has Alzheimer's, and she's still with us, but very advanced Alzheimer's now. And it was just something that I noticed, when I was with her. She genuinely had never really been interested in birds, and suddenly she was. And she would sort of sit by the window and be talking to me about the birds, and had this interest. So from there, that then you've got this sort of magical element comes in, where I kind of believe that she'll say that she's learning how to take flight by watching the birds and so on, and that's fabrication, really. I guess it's a comforting thought that maybe that's the case, you know. So it's all those different things that come together, and then they create this uh, fully formed song in the end. Yeah, that's the reasons.
Do you believe in any way, shape, or form in that comforting thought?
Well, I mean, not directly, probably not really. That like one person becomes one bird. But I think like one of the things that was in a lot of the other songs, you can hear me. Well, like in the Whistling of the Wind is another one that's sort of like what happens to us after death, and that is much more about energy. And I kind of feel like energy does get absorbed into other things, other creatures, other So it's not quite sort of direct reincarnation or anything like that, but different bits of us are in different elements of everything, and so there is that sort of maybe the spirit of something can kind of end up what can be the glint in the eye in a bird, Or I think there's something in that maybe.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, maybe a more comforting than provable thought, but
Yeah.
it's nice. I don't really put much stock in it myself, but I genuinely do think that my relatives get something nice out of seeing a bird and
Yeah,
saying hello.
it's a way of remembering the person, isn't it? I think
Yeah.
even if you don't fully believe it, it's a way of commemorating them, saying their name, remembering them during a normal day. So that can't be a bad thing.
Yeah, sort of the same with, using their old tools or something like that. You have these little connections to people,
Mm.
and I feel like that's perhaps you know in all of the talk about death, that's probably the the part that makes it the most palatable, is that there seems to be in your album that, like you said, this little magical element where there's these little pathways or in between spaces where you can still make that contact.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I think, just by thinking about the person, you're kind of bringing them back in a way, aren't you? There's no one's gone until, yeah, Terry Pratchett had a really nice phrase, and I can't remember exactly how it went, but it was something along the lines of that, you haven't really gone until the last person's forgotten you, so that you sort of live on in the memory of people. And of course, maybe in what you produce as well. So I kind of hope that I might live on a bit in just the fact that I've got some songs out there. There's that you put things out into the world that kind of get left behind and you get remembered for, even when they're things that are, to most people would be worth nothing, or as the closest thing to holding hands, that song, which she kind of mentioned, like using people's tools and things like that, that have passed on. There's that element too, just the actual physical things that they've left behind can be a really strong memory and a really strong connection to people who've passed away as well.
Well, let's take a moment to celebrate that connection with She Became a Bird, and we'll be back with Amy Hopwood.